Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm NecroVMX and you're listening to PotatoCast. I have a pretty interesting PotatoCast here for you this week, and I have something that I think might be a new take on the podcast, especially since I never wanted it to be the same old thing, and I wanted it to just sort of evolve and just always be whatever I felt like doing or whatever was on my mind, and just talking about shit. And some of it is it started off as a way for me to vent on shit that was on my mind, and it was all a lot of personal shit. But the thing is, I feel I got that out, and I feel like I will give you updates on a lot of that shit when applicable. But I haven't. Things have been going better. Not in general. In general, everything sucks. But as far as the things that I was talking about early on, like my back and just motivation and whatnot, and pain and living with that, it's been a lot better lately. Which is crazy because it's not like I've been taking a break or anything. I've been off painkillers for quite a while, and mostly because I ran out of them. I got to get more, but you know what it is I haven't felt the urge to I've been taking Aleve when needed, just regular old fucking Aleve. It's naproxen sodium, and I haven't needed to that badly. And sometimes I'll be in a little bit of pain, and I'll think I should take an Aleve, and then I'll be like, oh wait, I don't have any, and then I'll be like, well, I could go to Walmart, or I could just deal with it. And lately I've just been dealing with it, and it hasn't been that bad. So I do want to do different things. Now, before I get to that, though, a bunch of things I want to talk about, updates and whatnot. I did invite you guys to do Q&A, which I don't have up in front of me. That was very silly of me. Q&A for, oh God. I prepared everything else but that. I said, leave me some comments and I'll read them, and I didn't have the thing up, and I'm actually uploading Civilization Saturday right now, and my bandwidth is kind of, to suck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel the upload here, and that'll bring that up, and then I'll just redo the upload. There we go. Alright, I didn't get a whole lot of comments, but I do want to go over what I got, and hopefully if I talk about some new things, I will get some new comments. But let me restart that upload. There it goes. Okay. Well, not restart, but I wanted to resume is the word I was looking for. So, like I said, it's loading like a bitch. That's because I started the upload before everything loaded. All right. Actually, it's more than I thought. Okay. MMZ left me some comments. The first thing he said, I'm gun owner and I hate the NRA. Fuck the NRA. Yeah, well, I'm not a gun owner, although I absolutely positively support the Second Amendment. As for the NRA, yeah. Lately they've been doing more harm than good, so I kind of agree with you there. But the next thing that you wrote is just idiotic. I'm going to read what you said, and I'm going to pick it apart, because this is just stupid. He says, the idea that we have a liberal media is a fucking joke. The fact that people like Kim Davis are taken remotely seriously instead of the scum that she is a sign that we don't have a liberal media. All right, now let me. I'm not even going to read the rest of it, because it goes on like that, and dude. I didn't say that we have a liberal media as a whole. I said that there is liberal media and there is conservative media. If you think that there's no such thing as liberal media, turn on MSNBC. That's your liberal media. When people talk about the liberal media, they aren't talking about the media as a whole all leaning to the left. Because, look at Fox News. That doesn't lean to the left. Look at The Blaze. That doesn't lean to the left. But then you have your Al Jazeera America and your MSNBC. And to a certain extent, CNN as well, leaning towards the left. There is conservative media and there is liberal media. What we don't have is a balanced media. People who say, well, so-and-so is balanced. What they're really meaning is they're saying, well, so-and-so is not balanced, but agrees with my worldview. Like I knew a guy who said that he found Fox News to be balanced. Now, Fox News, okay, their news coverage is actually pretty balanced, but as for op-ed, and that is a part of the media, they lean heavily towards the right. They don't really have liberal pundits. They don't really have op-ed shows that give that point of view. Everything is a conservative point of view because they are conservative media. They're not balanced. The news coverage is fairly balanced, but the news coverage all over it leans more towards the center. Even CNN and MSNBC lean more towards the center with news coverage. But when you talk about op-ed, nothing's balanced, which is why I said last week that it's foolish to get your news from any one source. You should be examining multiple sources. Like, I mean, heaven help you if you're that asshole that gets all your news from Facebook. Because that's just sad. Alright, and he also says that 9/11 was politicized almost immediately to justify war in Iraq and Afghanistan. See, okay, no. No, that's not politicizing it, okay? When I talk about politicizing it, and eventually, yes, it was politicized, I'm talking about when you started having the lines in the sand being drawn, okay? Not the fact that, I'm not talking about the government when I talk about when something is politicized, although the government does do that. I'm talking about people in general, okay? Because you gotta remember that most people oppose that war. Most people didn't want to go to war because they didn't believe that it should be politicized in that way. When I talk about these school shootings and them being politicized, it's the people that start calling for gun control right away, as if that would actually solve these problems. Because, you know what? People are going to be violent no matter what. People are going to be crazy no matter what. And, you know, you really have to deal with it at the root. You know, instead of taking away the particular tool that they use to enact violence, why don't we get these people some fucking help? Or, you know, if push comes to shove, get them locked away before they can actually hurt anybody. There was almost another school shooting in this past week where this 15-year-old boy was threatening to shoot up his school due to the most ridiculous reason. Cheerleaders wouldn't send him nudes. He was asking girls for nude pictures. None of them would send him nude pictures because, I mean, who the hell just asks for nudes out of the blue like that when you're not in a relationship with someone? And he was texting his friend all about how he's going to shoot everybody. He was going to come. What he said is that he was going to come to the school and kill all the girls. And thankfully, this was prevented, not through gun control, but by the fact that his friend reported it and that he was arrested. And here's the thing, you know what? This person isn't a monster. They just have terrible ideas in their head. They feel that they're entitled to women. There's definitely a huge sexist thing going on there, and also severe mental problems. If it's like, I can't get nude pictures, that means everybody hates me, that means I hate everybody, that means I gotta shoot a bunch of people. This kid needs help. I mean, when we're coming down to it, you can't dehumanize the people that do these things and think of them as monsters or demons. You gotta think of them as people because they fucking are people. And especially, I mean, this is a child we're talking about. This guy's 15 years old, 14 years old. I forgot the exact age. He's a teenager. He needs fucking help. He needs psychiatric care. I want to move on because I didn't want this to be an angry political rant. Gimped Ninja says, of course I go to the East Coast and it rains all week. Well, that was Joaquin. He didn't want to hit landfall. He looked at the East Coast and he said, I don't want to hit that, but I'm going to jizz on it. And that's what we got. Hashtag Potato recently had to change planes 4 times, deal with a canceled flight, which meant rerouting through Chicago and having to deal with lost luggage, all with less than 5 out of 50 hours of sleep. So anyway, got any travel horror stories? Well, nothing as bad as that. Holy shit, man. And especially, the changing planes 4 times? That's just, dude. I actually haven't been on a plane since I was an infant. I haven't needed to. And I forgot what that trip was all about. There was a 2 and a back trip. I was a baby. I remember playing with the window. That's about all I remember. Most of my travel's been through car. You know, I don't have any horror stories like that. Nothing like that. I mean, probably the worst of it was a story that I know I've told in the past, but I'll give you all the Reader's Digest version. Me and my friend Brandon were going to a concert up in Poughkeepsie, and I can actually turn this off right now. I'll leave that later. We were going to a concert up in Poughkeepsie to see James LaBrie and his band, and he was driving, and when, you know, this is before GPS, this is before smartphones, you know, I mean, there was a such thing as GPS, but that was like something only rich people had at the moment. Now it's like everybody has smartphones, everybody has GPS, everybody can get anywhere they need to go. But back then, what you had to do is you had to go to a website like MapQuest, or I don't even think Google Maps was a thing yet, because we were all using MapQuest or Yahoo Maps, and you'd print out directions and you'd follow them. And I said, and usually, like, if he would drive on these excursions, and this is only like a 3-4 hour trip, I would navigate, so to speak. And I'd say, well, do you need me to get directions? But the thing is, he was familiar with Poughkeepsie because he used to work there. He used to have to commute into Poughkeepsie all the time. And so he was pretty familiar with how to get there. But I said, do you need actual directions to the venue, which was a place called The Chance? And he said to me, no, I know exactly where it is. I was like, oh, cool. So we don't need to do directions now. Then just chill out. He had no idea where it was. He was thinking of the Civic Center, which is a completely different type of thing. The Chance is a club. The Civic Center is a theater. And we got lost looking for it because we found, oh, that's the Civic Center, you idiot, you know. And there was one point where somehow he wound up in a parking garage at a dead end, and he had to turn around, and it was like really tight, and he had to do like a 14-point turn. You know, it was pretty ridiculous. And then we stopped and asked multiple people for directions, and nobody knew what the fuck we were talking about. They've heard of The Chance, but they didn't know where it was, or they claimed to know where it was, but they gave directions that made no sense. And when we tried to follow them, we just got more lost. Eventually, what I wound up doing was calling the local radio station. They got us there. I mean, we even went to like a train depot and asked for directions there because we wound up at a train depot at one point. But the concert was great. We weren't as late as we thought we were going to be. Actually, we were pretty late. It was right before it opened. We wanted to be there early because it was going to be general admission, and we wanted to be as close to the front as possible. But nobody was lined up. Everybody was just kind of hanging around in the alley, and we just went right to the front. Even though there was like hundreds of people there, nobody was at the line. So we were in the first row. The travel sucked, but everything else about that was cool. So there you go. All right, I'm going to move on here to BioPhoenix. I stay away from 4chan because a lot of people post nasty shit. Wish is sickening. I think he needs a witch. Typing of the Dead should be a funny one. Halloween is one of my favorite times of the year for me as well. Hashtag Potato. What are some of your favorite bands from the 60s and 70s? A lot of my favorite bands are from that era. Speaking specifically of that era, it would lean towards the progressive side of things like Yes and Rush and Pink Floyd and you know, and also the Beatles and the Who and some of the earlier metal acts like the Scorpions. You know, as for 4chan, I stay away from it too for the same exact reason. I have no desire to interact with these people. Like I said, there is some good that comes out of it. There's some bad that comes out of it. The bad tends to outweigh the good, and I just have no desire to be there. So there you go. Luke has 2009. I don't think I've seen you on PotatoCast, so welcome. He says, I didn't watch Bastion after a certain point because I wanted to finish Bastion myself. It was really good. I'll probably go back to the LP after my schedule opens up a bit. He's got a hashtag potato, but I just want to address that. That's fine. But generally speaking, like, the views on Bastion were really low, and that's why I was trying to get people to watch it. And like, the same thing was happening when I first started PotatoCast. The views on Paper Mario were really low. I did not understand why people were not watching Paper Mario. And I said to you guys on PotatoCast, you guys gotta fucking watch Paper Mario. It's one of the funniest funniest Let's Plays I've ever done. Bastion, not so funny, but a really cool game. And people listened, and they went, and the views went up, and I got comments, and people told me they really liked the Paper Mario LP. And it's like, yeah, you guys should watch the LPs. They're great. I think I do a good job. But let's see. Hashtag Potato. What games/DLC that are coming out in the last quarter of this year are you looking forward to? I want to stop there. There's more to that. But the big thing that I was going to say, because I thought it was actually coming out next week, was Civilization Beyond Earth Rising Tide, which is a DLC, but actually came out yesterday. I downloaded it. I've been playing it. It's fucking great. Also, the next game is something that you just mentioned, another expansion, Binding of Isaac Afterbirth, which, well, that's coming out the day before Halloween, which is great, but I need to get my Vita either fixed or replaced by then, and I hope that my save is on the SD card, and I can just, if I'm replacing the Vita, put it onto a new one, because I have like 100% completion in Rebirth, and I have Rebirth also on PC, but I would have to redo everything, and it's just like, some of that shit was like insanely hard. But let's see, you said, I'm mainly looking forward to the Binding of Isaac Rebirth expansion Afterbirth. One that came up on my radar recently is The Legend of Legacy, which is an RPG published by Atlas coming to the 3DS later this month. I might have to look into that. There's a demo on the eShop if you want to try it out. I don't really do demos on eShop, I just look at a trailer and see, hey, it looks good, and I'll buy it. Ronnie says, I envy your mild summer. I live in California. We're still getting 80-degree weather. Well, it's fucking California. California's always hot. I mean, that's just It's fucking California. I mean, technically most of California is a fucking desert, which is hilarious because it also has the largest coastline in the United States, so California's fucked up. The Undertaker says, I wish all these shootings would stop. I was never too thrilled about snow either. Wow, that went in a very different direction. I think we all wish the shootings would stop, except for, like, some of these fucking weirdos on 4chan, but... Yeah, Alex Shannon says, CNN isn't exactly what I'd call liberal, I just think they're a confused mess. Well, I do agree that they're a confused mess, but if you were to say where do they lean, because they're not balanced, they definitely lean more to the left. Not as liberal as, say, MSNBC, but they definitely lean to the left. They're definitely not conservative. And finally, SSerpent21 says, #potato, hello, Necro. Watching your playthrough of Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3, it seems they're a lot easier than they were on the NES, especially 2. Do you think any of these remakes have been harder than the original version? Thank you and have a great day. No, generally they were, the difficulties in these were either kept around the same or they were made a little easier. And what it is they didn't really change anything in terms of enemy damage or hit points or things like that. But what they did do with Dragon Quest on Game Boy Color and the remakes on DS and all that is generally you level up faster, and that's what makes it a little easier. There was also some things that got swapped around that actually made them a little harder in certain spots, especially in Dragon Quest 3, but generally speaking, if I'm trying to think of a remake that was made harder, it would probably be like Final Fantasy IV because, well, I mean, not that the remakes were made harder, but actually the remakes were kept more in tune with what the original game was. The version we got in America, which was called Final Fantasy II, was toned down quite a bit. There were two remakes of Final Fantasy IV that were toned down. One was the, Final Fantasy II, in America, that was toned down for difficulty. And then there was one in Japan, which was aimed at children. It was called Final Fantasy IV Easy Type, and that one was even easier. But generally speaking, the remakes tend to be harder. And I remember having people tell me who were playing Final Fantasy IV either on PlayStation or on Game Boy Advance or on PSP or on DS, or now on iOS or Steam, were saying, wow, this game is kicking my ass more than I remember. And it's like, well, did you play it on Super Nintendo? Because that was... kind of stuck on easy mode. Alright, so that's the Q&A. A couple other things I wanted to go over before I get to the main thing. I want to give you guys an update. I meant to talk about the Tanya situation with the GoFundMe, and I also wanted to give you guys an update on Hitomi and what's going on with her. Okay, so a lot of you guys, it was not last PotatoCast, but the one before it, and I meant to talk about it last time, but I forgot. And I wound up putting it in the description, but I don't know how many people are reading that. So what happened was Tanya had to move, and there was all these moving costs, and she put up a GoFundMe for a goal of like $200, and she put it on her Facebook, and then I took the link, and I talked about it on PotatoCast, and I put the link in the description, and there were numerous people who all went to the link trying to donate to Tanya, and they found that it was taken down. It was not there anymore. And the problem was I wasn't able to, like a lot of people reported it to me, but I wasn't able to give you guys an answer or really know what the hell was going on myself because I was out of touch with Tanya due to this whole moving thing because she had no phone, no internet, no nothing. I couldn't get, until Comcast came and set her up. And then, now she's got a new cell phone and she's got internet and everything, so I'm able to talk to her. And I found out what happened was, she met the goal very quickly. People that she know personally donated. She met the goal quickly. She got what she needed and she took the thing down. And that was that. So she didn't feel it needed to go any further. So, thanks to everybody that expressed an interest in donating to Tanya to help her out with the moving costs, but it turns out she got what she needed rather quickly. Now, as for Hitomi, I mentioned this a long time ago on like one of the first PotatoCasts, and you guys are well aware of this situation. If you're not, I don't want to go too into detail, but I'll recap, is that Hitomi is a friend of mine who lives in Japan. She lives in the countryside about, I would say an hour or so away from Sendai. And she had a job, and she lost the job. She was laid off from her job, and she has no money coming in. And the money that she gets from YouTube is not enough to support things like rent and whatnot. And in the past, her landlord had been very understanding about letting it slide, and that, she would pay him back on the months that she got more money. But during the summer, all of a sudden he wanted it all at once, and then he started wanting it earlier, and then he started raising the rent, and I've been talking about this ongoing. So she's had this ongoing GoFundMe, and the link is in the description, and some of you guys have been just extremely fucking generous in donating. I mean, I've been donating, Tanya's been donating when she can, a couple other people at Kizara Studios have been donating, a couple of my friends have been donating, but a lot of it came from you guys, from the channel, from PotatoCast. Every time I talked about it on PotatoCast, she would get another big bump, and you know, and I gotta apologize to her, because sometimes I would say, oh yeah, I'll mention it on the next PotatoCast, and then I would not be able to, because she's been trying to look for a job, and she's been unsuccessful as of so far, and then there was this whole thing where she had to go to California, because she had to visit somebody, and I think it was an aunt or something that was sick, and then that took like 2 or 3 weeks away from searching for a job, and everything. So here's the thing. She's got a final goal, finally. And what it is she has realized that her landlord is being a dick. He's being a complete cock gobbler. And he's taking advantage of her, and he's trying to, I think he's trying to drive her out, but he's taking advantage of her, and all the money that she's gotten, every single bit of it has gone towards rent. She's had like almost no money left over for things like food, and certainly nothing for anything else. She's had like no real internet. She's been using data on her phone to talk to people and you know, to use Skype, and that of course costs money too. And I mean, you know, like I said, there was a real chance that she could become homeless. There was a real chance that she could be put into a position where to make money, she might have to do things that are just like, I don't even want to get into. But, you guys have been super generous, and I ask for one last push of generosity, because this is what she's gonna move. She's got to get out of there. She's got to get out of there for so many reasons. A toxic environment, a bad landlord who is taking advantage of her, who is, greedy, who has raised the rent, after all this, because essentially he evicted some other people due to causing problems, and then raised everyone else's rent to cover the expense of not getting rent there. And, you know, it's just, like, you know, he's just been greedy. And, so basically, if she reaches her final goal, she's going to be able to move. And hopefully she'll be able to move to a better area where there'll be more opportunity, hopefully a more understanding landlord, and a cheaper rent, hopefully. And hopefully she'll be able to get a job, because right now she's in the fucking wilderness. I actually looked it up on Google Earth where she is, and let me tell you something. I thought I was in the country. There is like nothing but farms. You know what I mean? There's nothing. So, and she doesn't have a car. She can't commute, you know, so it's difficult. So I just want to ask you guys for one last push on that. So I just wanted to talk about an update on the Tanya situation. Tanya's situation's fine. The Hitomi situation is very close to being completely finished and done with. Okay, so let's get to the main event, and you probably know what I'm going to talk about because it's in the description of the video. Now, for the longest time, I've had the idea, I've done things like this in the past, where I've wanted to do things like top 10 lists, and people have asked me to do this kind of thing, ever since I started YouTube. And I've been a little resistant. I've done like a few like music things and, you know, like whatnot. But here's the thing. I never did it before for several reasons. One is that I think it's just so cliche, you know. And I mean, you know, you could say, hey, VMX, you know, Let's Plays or something that everybody does and it's kind of cliche and, you know. But here's the thing. I started doing that before everybody was doing it. And I don't mean that I was the first, but I mean that when I started doing it, there weren't all that many out there. There wasn't a Markiplier or a PewDiePie or a Dashie or any of these other guys that have millions of subs, and there weren't like 5 million people doing Let's Plays, you know what I mean? But top 10 lists is so fucking prevalent. And then, you know, when you get a channel that especially that is dedicated, I mean, look at like fucking Watch Mojo. They have completely fucking run out of ideas to the point where they're coming up with shit that is either extremely esoteric or they're repeating things. They'll do another top 10 such and such. So, but there are subjects that I want to talk about in this list format. But then when I was thinking about, I was actually writing, you know, and the subject here is top 10 reasons Nintendo should buy Capcom. And I'm going to give some background on that. But before I give some background on that, I want to tell you guys that I sat down and I was writing this. I'm just sorry, I'm moving here. I gotta get into a more comfortable position here because my back's starting to sing at me. It's singing the song of "Fuck You." Do you know how that one goes? It goes, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, son, fuck you. That's how it goes. That's what my back was singing. It's a lot better. Alright, so, and I was thinking, but how am I going to do, to make these kinds of videos, to do anything that requires extensive editing is something that I just don't have time for. And that's the answer to questions like, why don't you do videos like Urban Legends of Video Games, Clear and Confusion, Gamers Encyclopedia, 10 Facts, things like that. It takes too much time that I don't have in my life. I really don't. So, I was at the point where I don't even have time to record every day. That's why I record ahead of time. On the days that I do record, I record a whole bunch. And then I have, a couple of weeks worth of videos sitting there. So, I was like, how am I going to do this? Making videos, I don't want to just have still pictures, because, And then I thought, well, why even do a video? Why not talk about it on PotatoCast? There's a built-in audience, and it gives me an opportunity to also not have to write that much. I can just leave myself notes and then sort of ad-lib it. So, I want to talk about Capcom, and, Capcom is this company that has just been ridiculous the past, I want to say, 7 to 10 years. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And everybody's talking about Konami recently and all the shit they're doing. The hashtag fuck Konami. The problems with Hideo Kojima. Igarashi left and is working on Bloodstained. And now they're talking about they may not even be doing AAA titles. They may be focusing on mobile and casual and pachinko and that kind of crap. I know they're saying, no, we're not completely stopping AAA, and then everybody's like, yeah, right. And the whole thing with Keiji Inafune and the cancellation of Silent Hills and them trying to wipe the PT demo from the face of the earth. Taking Hideo Kojima's name off of Metal Gear Solid 5. Now, I'm not a fan of the series, but I'm a fan of Hideo Kojima as a person and as a creative mind. And if anyone deserves to have their name on the box of the video game, it's his. I mean, they took it away. It used to say Hideo Kojima Game. It doesn't say that anymore. They took his logo off of it. I'm sure he's still in the credits, but it's just that is such a dick move. So, all the things going on, but Capcom's been doing this for ages. So, a while back, a couple of years back, it was announced that Capcom was in such a financial crisis that they're for sale. Now nobody has come forward to buy them, and they're not actively trying to sell themselves. But if somebody wants to buy them, they can if they have the scratch. And people ask me who should buy Capcom. Now it has to be a Japanese company because there are laws in place in Japan that prevent foreign interests from buying Japanese companies. Although SNK was bought by a Chinese company. I don't know how the hell that happened. There must have been some kind of loophole there. But Nintendo should buy Capcom. And I've been saying that for ages. And now I have 10 reasons why Nintendo should buy Capcom. And I'm going to talk about it right here. Number 10. Capcom are fuck-ups who have mismanaged their IPs. Now you think of what are Capcom's IPs. Let's think of, say, 5 strong IPs, 5, and when I say IPs, I am talking about franchises. They have mismanaged their franchises. What are the big 5 Capcom franchises? And can you think of one that hasn't been fucked up in one way or another? Resident Evil, Street Fighter, Mega Man, and then it actually becomes kind of hard to think of, but okay, we'll throw Breath of Fire in there because I'm a huge fan and I do want to talk about that briefly. And for the 5th one, I'll say, you know what? I'll throw them a bone, and I'll say Monster Hunter, because that's the only one that they haven't royally fucked up. But look at Street Fighter. Street Fighter 5 is coming out, and everybody's just like, eh. It looks like the HD version of Street Fighter 4. Who cares? It seems that there are a few people in the fighting game community that are excited, but no one in general is excited. Think about the excitement when they announced Street Fighter 4 and how everybody was thinking that this is going to be the most amazing thing since Street Fighter 2. And it really wasn't. It was good, though. But Street Fighter 5, after the handling of 4, everybody's kind of wary. 4 came out and it's they prove that they're completely stuck in the 90s in their thoughts. They said, we're not going to be, we're not going to do like Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Hyper Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix. You know, we're not going to do that. We're going to have DLC. You're going to download new characters as they come out, and that didn't happen. And, you know, they were going to do it, and then instead they said, oh, well, we're going to release it as Super Street Fighter 4. It's going to be a completely new game that you'll have to buy for $30, and there you go. You can't just buy the characters. And they said, well, we decided to do a DLC pack because, you know, we had 9 characters, and that's too big for a DLC pack. I don't know why they couldn't have sold them separately, sold them, you know, 3 at a time. You know, 3 sets of 3, that's 9 characters. Or they could have sold them separately. They could have done them. They could have made a lot more money doing that, actually, because they would have had less money to spend on things like packaging and shipping and distribution. You know, but, you know, they said, well, this will be the last time we do that. And then what happened with, you know, the arcade edition, you know, coming back, and then, you know, with 4 new characters, and then Ultra Street Fighter 4, and then the you know, the 3DS version, and you know, so they said, oh, well, you know, we had that tsunami, that's why we did that. Like, you fucking idiots. Like, fuck you. Resident Evil, I mean, how's that gone downhill or what? I mean, look at, like, Resident Evil 4 was the peak of it. Since then, we've had Resident Evil 5, which was underwhelming, and Resident Evil 6, which was terrible. Some of the spin-offs are good, some of them not so much. Breath of Fire, what the fuck happened there? Okay, Breath of Fire was weird, but you guys could have marketed it, could have sold. It didn't. So you just give up. They get one game that doesn't sell up to what they think it should, and they give up. So they're fuck-ups. Okay, number 9. The two companies, and I'm talking about Capcom and Nintendo, share a deep history. Now, Capcom started out making arcade games, but you know, when they started making console games, it was all for Nintendo. They had a very strong working relationship with Nintendo. Nintendo published some of their games, especially in America, like Mega Man 6 was published by Nintendo, and there was a couple of others. Capcom developed for Nintendo. They made, first of all, under the guise of Flagship, which was a joint venture of Nintendo, Sega, and Capcom. That's how the Game Boy Color Zelda games came to be, Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. And also, The Legend of Zelda Minish Cap on Game Boy Advance was straight up developed by Capcom. These were good games. This is when Capcom was doing great. Yeah, sure, they released lots of games for PlayStation, Xbox, and some for PC, but all of their great series, aside from Resident Evil, because Resident Evil is the exception here, have either started with Nintendo or had a very strong tie to Nintendo. So, you know, it seems like a natural fit. Okay, number 8, Capcom has virtually no goodwill left, while Nintendo has plenty. Now, sure, there are people who kind of like to hate on Nintendo, but, you know, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, how this could strengthen both companies, but, you know, they have goodwill, though. People generally trust that Nintendo are going to do the right thing, even when they don't. You know, even when they don't, even when they royally fuck up, and it's happened, you know, I'm not even just talking about the Wii U, I'm talking about in the past, I'm talking about, like, the fucking Virtual Boy, you know, that didn't sink them. Nothing can sink them, because, you know what, people are like, you know what, PlayStation will never have, you know what, Xbox will never have, you know what, PC will never have, Nintendo games. Capcom doesn't have any goodwill left. They did about 20 years ago, now they have none. Even 15 years ago they had some goodwill. Yeah, 10 years ago, it was starting to wane, you know. Now they have no goodwill left. Nobody trusts them. Nobody is excited about something because it's a Capcom game. And people are getting wary. I mean, yes, I know people who are excited about Street Fighter V. I know people who are excited about Resident Evil 7. But they're not like, oh, yes, this is going to kick ass because it's Street Fighter. Or this is going to kick ass because it's, what did I say? I said Resident Evil. They're more like, oh, well, they fucked up so much, they're kind of due to do something good. That's the words I've heard from people's mouths. All right, so, number 7. Nintendo understands Capcom's characters better than Capcom does. Now, I'm going to talk about, this is mainly to do with Mega Man. Mega Man is something that Capcom, it's like they forgot he's a thing. They forgot that people like him. Recently, they sort of, oh, yeah, people like Mega Man? Because there's that Mighty Number 9 game, which is like, oh, you know, basically the next Mega Man game, but we don't get to develop or publish it because we pissed off everybody that had anything to do with making Mega Man games, and they all left to join Concept, and Concept got $4 million crowdfunded towards Mighty Number 9. And, you know, yeah, they've mismanaged a few things as well, but the game is going to come out, and from all from all what I've seen, it's going to be pretty good. And here's the thing. The latest thing that Concept has done with Mighty Number 9 that has pissed off a lot of people is they've moved the release date, from September, which obviously is past, to sometime in the first quarter of next year. And they've said, and they shouldn't have lied about this, but they did lie. I think they lied. They said that it's due to some of the online aspects of the games aren't done, and the publisher that they're working with wanted to make sure that it ships complete. And I get that, but I don't think it's true. What I think the truth is that Capcom tried to fuck them over by releasing the Mega Man Legacy Collection at around the same time that Mighty Number 9 would come out, so they decided to delay it so that, the whole Legacy Collection thing would die down. But here's the thing, Mega Man, even the Legacy Collection, it's 1 through 6, we're 7 and 8. Or even 9 and 10, which were only on Wii and Xbox 360 and PS3. You can't get them on the new consoles, and certainly not on PC. It would have been great to have those on Steam, but yeah, whatever. Fuck you. That's Capcom's thing. Fuck you. Give us your money. Bend over. Okay, Capcom. Okay, let's talk about Mega Man. Capcom. They pretend like Mega Man has no fans because Keiji Inafune left. Mega Man became persona non grata with them. And they just decided Mega Man has no fans, even though the fans are screaming at them. People have been saying for the longest time that they want Mega Man to make appearances in Capcom's many, many fighting games. And, because Capcom are constantly releasing fighting games. And Mega Man has made appearances in them, and various Mega Man characters in Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2. Even SVC Chaos, which was made by SNK, had Zero in it. Tatsunoko vs. Capcom had Mega Man from the Legends series, and then you had Roll as well from the Classic series. And people, were saying we want Mega Man in a fighting game. So first they were saying as a guest in Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Mega Man. And first they said, yeah, we're going to put Mega Man in it, but he's going to be the fat Jack Black looking bad box art joke character bitch ass fucker that they did that is nothing like a Mega Man. So that and nobody liked that. Oh, by the way, he's only on PlayStation for some reason. I don't understand that. I can understand Cole being only on the PlayStation consoles because Cole is a PlayStation character, but Mega Man and Pac-Man are not PlayStation characters. They should have been on the Xbox version as well, but I wasn't interested in Street Fighter Cross Tekken anyway, so, fuck it. But, yeah. So then it was they did a poll for Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which is another thing that they shouldn't have done. That should have all been DLC, but once again, they're like, oh, the Tsunami, we can't just give you these characters as DLC, even though they did DLC with, Sentinel and I think Storm as well. No, Storm was in the original game. It was Sentinel and I think it was Shuma Gorath, actually, that was DLC. But then Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom came out. Go ahead, buy it again. And I didn't. That was the last straw for me. I was like, fuck it, I ain't buying it again. Because I didn't even think the first version was even that great. It wasn't bad, but it's just, wasn't worth buying again. But anyway, there was this poll on Capcom's website, and this is Capcom's own poll. What character do you want to be added to the next iteration of Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which turned out to be Ultimate? And the winner, by a wide margin, was Mega Man X. They wanted Mega Man X to be in it. Then Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 comes out. Mega Man X is not in it. And fans ask Capcom, why is Mega Man X not in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3? Characters that were in the poll appeared in it, like Phoenix Wright, but not Mega Man X. And they said, well, not enough people wanted him. He was number 1 on your own poll. More people voted for Mega Man X than any other character, and you're going to say not enough people wanted him? So then enough people got angry that what they did was they gave Zero an alternate costume where he could look like X. But that's not the same thing. That's not what we wanted. So finally, who did it? Who got Mega Man looking like he should, playing like he should, acting like he should, into a fighting game? Nintendo, and to a certain extent Namco, who worked on the game Super Smash Bros. 4 Wii U, Super Smash Bros. 4 3DS. And he looks great, and it's what people wanted, and all of a sudden, interest in the character skyrocketed. But it wasn't anything to do with Capcom let them do it. That's all they did. So obviously Nintendo understands what people want. Nintendo understands how Mega Man should look, how he should play in a fighting game. So if Mega Man actually got to develop like actual Mega Man games, think of how great they would do with that. So that was number 7. Number 6, this would be an end to the bad blood between Capcom and Keiji Inafune. Nintendo doesn't really do grudges. They don't do bad blood. You know what I mean? Even when they had a problem with, his name slips my mind all of a sudden. Gunpei Yokoi, due to the failure of the Virtual Boy. They didn't fire him. They didn't publicly shame him. They didn't do anything. What they did was they gave him a different job where he would not be involved in development. They gave him an executive position, and he wanted to be involved in hardware and software development, so he chose to leave Nintendo, and he went to Bandai. And unfortunately, he died before there could be any kind of reconciliation, or before we could really see anything great from him, because all we saw was the fucking Wonder Swan. But, Nintendo never tried to pretend that Gunpei Yokoi doesn't exist. Nintendo never tried to destroy or otherwise kill off the characters that he created, like Samus Aran and Pit from Kid Icarus. As a matter of fact, Kid Icarus made a comeback. Pit got himself into Smash Brothers, and there were many Metroid games after Gunpei Yokoi left the company. Nintendo, if they owned all this, they would say this shit with Keiji Inafune is stupid. We should be working with Concept, not fighting against them. Number 5, return of older IPs that Capcom have abandoned. Okay, Mega Man, obviously. Darkstalkers, Breath of Fire, Bionic Commando. You know, all these Capcom games from the past that could be remade, continued, rebooted, or just revitalized. And because Nintendo, generally speaking, don't give up on franchises all that easy. I mean, there have been a few that they don't really revisit all that often, but usually there's a very good reason. Like Mother is one of them. There was only 3 of them, and they said there won't be another one. But that's because the guy who created that series feels that the story is over. You know, it's not a mandate from corporate, so to speak. So, all right. Number 4. Now, this is where they can actually help Nintendo, because Capcom's has a lot of experience with the casual and mobile market. They've been making a lot of these games for mobile markets. You know, like Endless Runners and Pachinko and all that bullshit. And Nintendo wants to break into the mobile market. Capcom has a lot of experience in the mobile market. This is where Capcom's expertise can help Nintendo. So, there you go. They can help them with the mobile things. Now, the next 2 kind of go together. But number 3, having Capcom IPs as Nintendo exclusives will strengthen Nintendo. And that kind of goes into the fact that, yeah, if Nintendo bought Capcom, all these things, like you won't see Street Fighter or Resident Evil or Monster Hunter or anything on Xbox. You won't see it on PlayStation. That's going to make Nintendo stronger. All of a sudden, it's like everybody talks about how they don't have enough games, they don't have enough third-party support. But if they make Capcom into a second-party developer or a part of Nintendo, that's just that many more games that can be coming out, that many more IPs that they have at their disposal. And like I said, the one thing that those other consoles will never have, and I love PlayStation, and I love Xbox, and I'm going to talk more about that in just a bit for number 2, but they'll never have Nintendo games. They'll never have Mario or Zelda or anything. And some people are fine with that, and some people don't want those games, and that's fine. But for people who grew up in my era, we tend to love those games because that's what we grew up with, and they're still great. Nintendo having more exclusives is only going to make them stronger. Now, here's where the opposite holds true. Number 2, having weakening Microsoft and Sony by not having any Capcom IPs will force them to innovate and improve. So, all of a sudden, there's going to be this void on Xbox, and there's going to be this void on PlayStation, and even a void on PC, where you don't have Resident Evil, and you don't have Street Fighter, and you don't have any Capcom games. That is going to lead to, first of all, other developers coming in and filling that void, and those companies having to court new developers, perhaps even independent developers, to make games to compete with Nintendo, because they're going to need to. Competition is the best thing that can happen in the industry, because the last time we had a monopoly in the industry was, Atari, and look what the fuck happened there. I mean, some people say, well, Nintendo, had a long streak as number one, but they were never a monopoly. You always had Sega there as number two, but as a very close number two, and they made Nintendo better by being the competition. Competition is always going to be great in these sorts of things. And finally, number one, Nintendo has the one thing that Capcom is sorely lacking, and that is creativity. And I've been looking at this Super Mario Maker, and I gotta say, if there's any game that'd make me go out and buy a Wii U right now, it's this. And yeah, no, I mean, and I'm a huge Pikmin fan, and even that didn't get me to go out and buy the console. And I always said, yeah, you know what, I'm kind of waiting for Xenoblade Chronicles X, but Pikmin 3 is great and all, and there's a lot of other great games, but I wait till there's like certain things in place. But Mario Maker, man, that shit, honestly, that shit's dope. I mean, I've seen the creativity that not only that people are doing with their levels, but that Nintendo put into the game. It's way, way less limited than I thought this thing was going to be. And seeing some of these levels and some of the ingenuity that is even allowed, and the fact that we're having amiibo support and DLC and things like that is pretty amazing. Let's get Capcom in on this. And I thought, like, how cool would it be to have a game like Mega Man Maker, where you could make your own 8-bit Mega Man levels? Think about that. Think about all that you could do with that, And I actually have like a whole, like, almost like completed idea for it in my head. Hey, Nintendo, Capcom, you want to talk to me? You got my fucking contact info. But there you go. That's my top 10, and I will occasionally be doing top 10 lists on PotatoCast. I actually have another one done here, but I'm not going to do that today. But anyway, that's the big thing. Let me know what you think. Should Capcom buy Nintendo? Do you think I made a good case for it? And if you don't think... I said Capcom buy Nintendo. Should Nintendo buy Capcom? And if you don't think Nintendo should buy Capcom, do you think that Capcom can continue to survive on their own and regain the glory that they once had? Or do you think a different company should buy them? And why? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to stop here. This has been PotatoCast. Leave me some questions. Leave me some comments. We'll read them out probably next time. And maybe we'll have another top 10 list. See you then.